And you have that dual camera setup up top. And what I can tell you about this camera setup, first of all, this was the first iPhone to bring a dual camera setup, and that in and of itself was pretty impressive. You have two 12 megapixel sensors, a wide angle lens, and a telephoto lens. Now, what's really cool about these cameras is that since then, really the only time we've seen any additional camera sensors after, a dual camera setup was in 2019 when the iPhone 11 Pros came out. Other than that, we've always had dual camera setups since the 7 Plus for the top tier models. And I think that's a very important thing to keep in mind. It's not like we have had quadruple and, 6 camera sensors like all these other phones had. For iPhones, we've only had, triple camera setups now. We might have 4 in the next iPhone, but this dual camera setup, if you're taking photos of your family and if you're going day to day or whatever, and you're just like taking Snapchats and stuff, like this camera will definitely get the job done. Now, I've done a lot of camera comparisons throughout my life, and what I can tell you is that the biggest differences that I can see is basically the noise in the photos and the graininess in these photos usually goes down as you get higher and higher on the tier list. So if you get an iPhone 11 Pro, those photos are going to look way nicer and they're going to have way less noise and grain than looking at an iPhone 7 Plus photo. But if you're not looking at them side by side, and if you're not trying to actively go out and take photography like photos on this phone, then I think you're going to be okay for the most part. Now, a really good thing about the iPhone 7 Plus is that you do have the ability of shooting 4K at 30, which is something I really do like. Me personally, I don't really like film 4K at 30 too often, but it is something that I always kind of look at in videos, especially for cameras that came out around this time. I would definitely say after about the 2018 timeframe, if you're not rocking 4K at 60, then it's probably not really a good camera. But even 4K at 30 here, I think is okay for the most part. So camera wise, I think it's a good sensor. I think it's better than you actually might think, but it's not like the best camera at all. Not at all. You have a 7 megapixel camera on the front. You can do 1080p at 30, and it does more of the same. I mean, it takes really good Snapchat photos if you're trying to go day to day doing that. If you're trying to make TikTok videos and stuff, like I think you'll be okay for the most part. But just don't expect, if you're trying to go and do, photography like photos and do crazy videos and stuff, like maybe you will be able to do it, maybe you won't, but upgrading your camera may be a better choice. Now, a really cool thing is with the iOS 14, we actually got some improvements with the camera. We actually have features in the Photos app, but we now have the ability of changing our camera resolution if we have the ability to on our iPhones that support iOS 14, which is really, really cool. And